Welcome to 2024 Spring and Summer Monthly Planting and Sowing Series. Now it's officially spring here in South Africa, and whether you are pro or a beginner, this is a perfect time to get your hands into the soil and start growing your own food. In today's video, I'm excited to walk you through the 12 crops that I will be starting off in September. Now firstly, I will kick off with direct sowing, which is one of the quickest way actually to get started. So if you do not have a nursery or windowsill to actually start off your seed indoors, then direct sowing is an easy way actually to kickstart your spring garden. So one of the crops that I will be sowing directly is definitely some leafy greens. So if you remember, in this container during the winter months, I sow some baby spinach in this container, and today I will be just mixing things up a little bit. I will be sowing some arugula, baby spinach, as well as some lettuce seeds all together in this one container. This will give me a nice mixture, just so that I can actually grow, and whenever I need maybe some greens for smoothies or for some stews, then I can just harvest them from a single container. So in this container, I will be sowing some arugula, baby spinach, and some lettuce. Now, when you go with this approach, spacing is not an issue, because when I'm planning to harvest this, I will just be cutting this off and then use it either in a smoothie or in some of our meals. If this season is your very first time that you are trying to grow stuff, I think a good place to start is either to start with some herbs or with some leafy greens. So I will also be sowing directly some root crops. There are different varieties of carrots that you can actually plant, but I'm starting off this variety in this section of the bed. So since the weather is still a little cool during the spring season in my climate, I think it's a perfect time for me to take this opportunity to sow a couple of rows of some root crops. If you already have mastered growing some leafy greens, the next stage that you can transition to is root crops. So I think root crops is a little bit tricky, as some of the crops might be difficult to germinate. So it's just important to put a label. If some stuff do not germinate during 14 days or according to indication of the packet, then it's either time for you to resow. So I think it's important just to keep the area moist to ensure that your seed germinates. So that is important to remember when it comes to root crops. They are a little bit tricky, but it can be so rewarding when you actually harvest some of your root crops. So if you beginner, limited space, my advice will be to try out the Parisian variety. They are cute little round carrots that you can actually grow in containers. That's definitely one of the crops that you can try out. Also, just starting off some runner beans. I prefer to grow them for their seeds. I like them dry. So I will be planting some of the runner beans in this wigwam structure that I bought. Now let's move over to some of the fruits that I will be starting off in September. So first on my list is definitely tomatoes. Now when it comes to tomatoes, it's important to have the right plant and to put it in the right place. The reason why I'm saying that is because there are two groups of tomatoes that you can find. You find the indeterminate tomatoes and determinate tomatoes. So if you have limited space, it's important to consider a variety that will fit into your space. So I've decided to actually go with some dwarf varieties this season because I do not have sufficient trellises to grow my indeterminate tomatoes. However, during the winter, I got some volunteer tomatoes from the previous season where seed has dropped, tomatoes have dropped, and some small seed did germinate. So I have 2 of volunteer tomatoes, indeterminate, that are currently growing on my windowsill. I will be transplanting that out later this month when things are getting a little bit warmer in my climate. But my plan is this year to mostly start determinate varieties, and I'm planning to grow them in growing bags or some place in my garden because I have limited space to grow my tomatoes. So my tip is, if you are living in an apartment or you have a small space, maybe it will be advisable to consider the determinate tomatoes because they can be grown in containers and they are much better for smaller gardens. The next fruit that I'm also planning to grow is some squash. So last year, the highlight for my gardening journey was actually growing Tahitian butternut squash. I also got a volunteer seedling from my garden. So I've been growing that plant on my windowsill. I have been potting it up for some time. I'm planning to actually convert another portion of my lawn into a garden, and that is where I will be planting that variety. So, but squash, I will try just one plant of the Tahitian butternut squash. But other squash varieties that I'm also planning is to try the spaghetti variety. And my plan is to grow it up on this trellis at the back. I will be doing a whole video of some ideas that I'm thinking of approaching that project. So spaghetti butternut squash, I will definitely plant 2 plants of those. And then also another variety that was doing quite well in my garden last season, I will also try this variety out and also plant a couple of those plants. So I have some pepper plants that have overwintered, but this is also an opportune time for you if you want to grow some peppers to start them off indoors, and if you have the space, and then transplant them into your garden once the risk of frost has passed. Now lastly, when it comes to the tubers, I have some potatoes that are currently growing in the garden. But one of the tubers that we really enjoy in our house is sweet potato. I had quite a good harvest earlier in this year. So I have some slopes that are growing, but if your intent is to grow some sweet potatoes this year, then now is a perfect time actually to start your slopes. So the way I find that is most suitable for me is to just find good quality sweet potato and then place that in a container, wood compost buried, and just keep it moist and keep it in a home place. Very soon the slopes will develop, and the reason why I like this approach is that when you get the slopes, they will already have the roots. So then you don't have to put it in water to develop, the white roots. But I would recommend that you start your sweet potatoes right now if your intent is to start some sweet potatoes later in the season. But these are 12 crops that I am planning to start in September. Remember, there's no one-way approach. It's important for you to experiment and to have fun. But please let us know in the comments, what are your thoughts? What are you growing? And I'm looking forward to share the harvesting journey. As you can see in the garden, there's still a number of cool season crops that we have started, and I'm looking forward to harvest them with you as you were with us when we actually planted some of these crops, and also to share with you how the garden is changing from this winter garden into a vibrant, bright summer garden. But thank you so much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you in future videos. I'll put a video here that you can check out, and check out this video, and I'm seeing you then in the next video. Peace.